Good morning, everybody. Well, I am glad everybody's able to join this morning. It's a gorgeous day out. I know that obviously we're all trying to take advantage of these sunny days while we've got them. And I think that today, we've got a really special presentation that is going to, I think, be really right down the strike zone for everyone who is thinking along the lines of preparedness in terms of being able to produce food for yourself. We have Kevin Mussack. Kevin is a retired engineer and a grandfather who lives with his wife of 48 years in the Finger Lakes region of Western New York. He's a former Army officer, a certified private pilot, a licensed ham radio operator, and an avid gardener. He maintains a 400 square foot hydroponic greenhouse where he grows vegetables and citrus fruit year round. He does on their property, him and his wife keep a modest flock of laying hens, a small vineyard, and several garden plots and berry patches. He enjoys riding motorcycles and is dedicated service rifle competitor. He has lived the preparedness lifestyle for decades and has developed a wide portfolio of related skills. And with that, Kevin's going to be today talking with us about his system, his setup, and what he is doing to grow food indoors. And so with that, Kevin, I'm going to turn it over to you, and looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Okay, can everybody hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Off to a good start. Yeah, what you left out, Paul, was bending steel in my bare hands, leaping tall buildings in a single bound, but we'll just go over that later. Yeah, I do hydroponics here in the greenhouse, and how I got into it and all that stuff is purely coincidental. It's where we're at now and what's it take. We always wanted a greenhouse, and I never knew anything about greenhouses or hydroponics. But hey, we live in the era of the internet, right? So I was able to accumulate enough information to be dangerous, and went ahead and built the greenhouse. Now, I don't know how much view you folks have on your screens, but I'm going to step out of the way. This is looking down my 40-foot length of this greenhouse that's built on the south side of the house. Can you see it okay? Can you see some stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyhow, we chose to do hydroponics because it offered a heck of a lot in the area of I can automate it and take care of itself. I can control all the really important stuff, the nutrients and things like that. Whereas you fill a pot with dirt, you get what you get, And so our current state of the art here is we're operating 3 different techniques of hydroponics here. And just real quickly, for those to whom the word may be strange, hydroponics means water work. Hydroponics, Greek. Basically, we're growing plants with nutrient-filled water in lieu of soil. But we still provide the plants something to grab onto with their roots so they don't fall over. And so we have these net cups, they call them. Hang on a second, I'll show you. You with me?
Yep.
Okay. This is a net cup, and it's perforated all over the place. And what we do after we have started a seedling in a small cube of rock wool, this stuff. It's like, I don't know, densely packed fiberglass insulation. And we soak this rock wool with some water, which has been made acidic. And then I have a nursery area under lamps that I will get my my plants started. And then they'll go into this net cup surrounded by expanded clay pellets. And I'm going to try to show that to you too. I didn't realize that the sun would make seeing what's going on so difficult for me. I hope you can see what's going on. Anyway, this is the surface of one of our deep water culture tanks. And here I have some baby romaine lettuce that we've started, and we've supplied this hydroton or expanded clay pellets so that when the plant roots go out, they'll have something to hang on to, so the darn thing won't fall over. And this cup is then placed in a hole in a styrofoam raft, and that raft floats on a tank full of nutrient solution. Does that make sense to anybody?
Yeah.
Okay. So so this is called a deep water culture tank. It's a 50-gallon stock tank made by Rubbermaid that I decided to use. We fill it with 42 gallons of water, and then mix dry nutrient into that water. It dissolves, and we maintain it at a certain level so that the plants are adequately nourished. Make sense? One of the other things that they need, of course, is sunlight, and I hope you can see that we got plenty of that today. Holy smokes. And I augment that. Again, let's see if we can show you. With grow lights. Now, these are not state of the art. These are the old incandescent grow lights, 800 watts. But in the wintertime, things get pretty dark here in upstate New York, like I'm telling you something you don't know. And so we supplement the light, get into our plants with a couple of hours of artificial in the morning and a couple of hours of artificial in the evening. And we maintain a good rate of growth and fruit setting and stuff like that. If anybody's got a question, please just sound off. I'm off the cuff in this thing. I'm just kind of making it up as I go along. So we have here in the greenhouse 5 of these deep water culture tanks, and they occupy positions side by side here in the greenhouse. And one of the things I've done, and doesn't have anything to do with the meat of the presentation, is I've started making my own hot sauce because I'm a hot sauce guy. And so I've pushed a lot of the growing over toward peppers. And I've got some really flavorful, benign peppers like green bells and things like that. And then I got some weapons grade stuff, you know, the ghost and this, things like that. And I hope to learn more and make a better product as I go along. Right now, among these tanks, we're growing those peppers that I just talked about. And then I have an overabundance of basil. I don't know what happened. I planted too much. But at any rate, we also have cucumbers, kohlrabi. Oh, pardon the overgrowth. We are entering into what we like to call the jungle phase, you know, because tomatoes are vine plants and they go up and reach the ceiling of the greenhouse and go across and down the other side. So it's a little bit like a Tarzan movie in here this time of year. Aside from the deep water culture tanks, which we simply immerse the roots in, the liquid nutrient, we also aerate that nutrient periodically with large 2-inch aeration stones, like what you'd use in an aquarium, because we want to keep that water solution well oxygenated. We don't want it to go anaerobic, or the place will start to smell like dirty feet, and the plants won't do well, with that sort of thing. Another technique that we employ here in this greenhouse is the flood and drain grow bed technique. And let's see. We've got a couple of those here. This is one of my little lemons that got away. I don't know what happened to it. Anyways, it's the same 50-gallon tank, but I filled the whole tank with that hydrogen pellets, those expanded clay pellets. And what we do is, on a timer, we'll pump this tank full of nutrient solution up to about 1 inch at the top of the gravel of the pellets, and soak the roots of the plants for about 30 minutes. Then we allow that nutrient to drain back out, and it stays out for several hours, drawing air down in around the roots. And then we repeat the cycle, flooding and draining, flooding and draining. And in this case, I have 2 of those beds. There's one, and there's the other. This one contains my habanero orange, and here we've got some poblano over here. Not that it makes much difference, but anyway. And finally, the third technique that we employ here is called a Beto bucket or Dutch bucket system. And let me see if I can get this to look down. I don't know if you can see very well, but what we have is an array of 12 buckets, and we circulate the nutrient solution through these buckets. We got little hoses that dribble nutrient solution in from the top. It goes down through the material that the plants are holding on to, and then it drains back into the reservoir where it gets aerated and pumped back through again. So it's a constant circulation. So all in all, we got the 3 techniques: the deep water culture, the flood and drain, and the Beto buckets or the Dutch bucket system. There are others, there are other ways to do this. The crack key system: you take a jar, you put nutrient solution in it, you stick a plant in it, and set it in the sun. But done. That's all it takes. But what we've tried to do here is maximize the growing potential.
So Kevin, there's a couple of questions in the chat. First question is, as far as the nutrient solution, what is in it? What's it made of? And then where do you get that nutrient solution from?
Okay. For those who might be taking notes, Morgan County Seeds. Morgan County Seeds. And I buy I buy 2 of the 3 components from them. First, there's a water-soluble fertilizer solution. And then there is, or not solution, it's a chemical. Let's go back down to the bench and I'll actually show you the chemicals. They're pretty benign. You can get a lot of them for a little bit of money. And so we're all preppers, right? So I've laid in a bunch of these nutrients against an interruption in the supply chain, the sort of thing we all do. So let's head back down and I'll show you that nutrient. All that. So,
so Kevin, since you mentioned that, why don't you go ahead and give us this Castle Hydroponics on YouTube, right?
Right. Castle, like a king's castle, and hydroponics. There's the logo.
There we go.
Right there. See, it's a little castle with a leaf dripping out of a faucet. It's the best I could do. What the heck? I'm an engineer, And So the nutrient solution, the nutrient itself is a 3-component mix. First comes the fertilizer. The fertilizer is a powder that's contains 4-18-38. Is everybody out there pretty much familiar with the NPK numbering of fertilizer? You know what we're talking about? Okay. All right. So the ratio of the mix is 1 unit of this which is, this is showing up backwards on my video here, but this is calcium nitrate, also known as Norwegian saltpeter. And this stuff is packed full of nitrogen. And this brings the nitrogen content of the nutrient solution like through the roof. And then the last secret ingredient, good old fashioned Epsom salts. And this is a half. So to nutrify, if that's even a word, a full tank of water, I'll go with 100 grams of the fertilizer, 100 grams of fertilizer, 100 grams of this nitrogen packed stuff, the Norwegian saltpeter, and then 50 grams of the Epsom salts. I weigh all that stuff out on a good old fashioned triple beam balance. You know, it takes me back to high school, right? And the water that I use is purified by means of reverse osmosis, because our municipal water here comes out of deep water wells in limestone, and it's hard as nails. It's got all kinds of stuff in it. So I run the water through a reverse osmosis filtration system, and I'll show that to you here real quick. Now, you see this stuff? I've got a sediment filter, a carbon filter, and then 2 reverse osmosis filters here. And the water is then stored in this tank and is gravity fed to all the various operations in the greenhouse. Does that make sense to anybody?
Yeah. And so just one more time. So you said the 100 gram, 50 gram is mixed in how many gallons of water?
42 gallons of water.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so those ratios, just maintain them and you're good to go. I use an instrument called a ppm meter, but it's really just a electrical conductivity meter. Many folks don't realize it, but water itself in its purest form will not conduct electricity. It's what's in the water. It's what's dissolved in the water that makes water electrically conductive. Okay? So if I have very pure reverse osmosis filtered water and I stick my instrument in there, it measures 0. It says, no, there's no electrical conductivity here at all. Then I mix my nutrients in there and I stick my instrument in the nutrient filled water and I shoot for a number around 1000 ppm. That converts the electrical conductivity nature of the solution into a parts per million expression. And so I try to maintain 800 to 1000 ppm in my solution so the plants never go wanting for any kind of nutrient. Are we good?
Yeah.
Okay. So how does this relate to preparedness? And what would I do if the power went out? And blah, blah, blah. Well, first of all, life is what you do waiting for the apocalypse, okay? And I try to live my life the best I can. And this really contributes to it because when I have a salad, that stuff's brand new. That stuff is fresh. If the lights were to go out, I do have auxiliary power. I have a whole house generator running on natural gas. And then I have another generator which runs on gasoline as a contingency plan. But with no power over long term, I could still run this operation. I would just have to dedicate more time to it to circulate the fluids and to aerate them and to take care of stuff. And if necessary, I could even drop back to the Kratky method, where I don't employ some of the more sophisticated techniques. I just keep the water and grow what I can grow. This greenhouse is actually of my own design, and I was inspired by the what the heck are those things called? The southwestern half-buried greenhouses. The
Earthship?
what? Say what?
Earthship?
I don't know. I want to say Palomini, but that's not it.
Okay.
At any rate, my feet right now are standing on the floor of this greenhouse, which is 37 inches below grade. So all the way up about to my belt buckle, this greenhouse is buried in the ground. And then the north wall of the greenhouse is against our house. And the east and the west walls are like 8 inches thick, highly insulated. The glazing itself is polycarbonate, 10 millimeters thick with an air space. So I could keep the air inside this greenhouse above freezing with an Aladdin lamp, basically. I still have fallback capability. I have a propane, 20-pound propane tanks with, you've seen those glowing red heater elements. Most of the year, heating is not an issue. Overheating is an issue. And we're swiftly approaching that time of year when I'm going to have to unroll a sunshade on the outside of this thing and eliminate up to 70% of the incoming light, because this place turns into a solar oven. And we have to actively ventilate it in order to keep it from killing the plants. Last summer, we ran through the summer with pepper plants, and we had great success. We were harvesting peppers regularly, but we moved most of our agricultural work outdoors when Mother Nature permits it.
A couple other questions in the chat. One is, so you talked about how to mix the nutrients. How about in terms of maintaining the balance? Is there anything that you need to do to keep the balance in check?
Okay. Each of my tanks and my reservoirs are fed from the main reservoir of purified water by gravity through float valves. And so each of my deep water culture tanks has a float valve in it, so that as the plants consume water, and what they do is they take water up through their roots, move it to their leaves, and then out the bottom of the leaves through little holes called stoma, they will transpirate the water into the air. And that's all part of their the way they work. And so they're consuming water, but as the tank itself needs more water, that's indicated by the float valve. And so when the float valve senses that the level has been depleted, it allows the flow of additional RO water into the tank to keep it back up to level. Now, over time, the amount of nutrient in that solution, in that water, will be depleted because the plants are growing and they're taking it up. And what I do is I just go around like weekly and use that instrument, the ppm meter, the electrical conductivity meter, and I'll pull out a net cup and I'll stick it down into the liquid and see how we stand. I'll let it deplete down to 400 or 500 ppm before I go ahead and mix up a booster shot, so to speak, using those same ratios, but the actual gram numbers would be less. For instance, if I measured this tank right here and it came in at, say, 500 ppm, I like to have it around 1,000. Instead of a full gram of the first ingredient, or a full 100 grams of the first ingredient, I might put in 50. So then my ratio would become 50, 50, 25. Do you follow me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I've got to admit, I sometimes am remiss and I let things go further than I should. You know, hydroponics as a technology, as a practice, was actually honed to a sharp edge by illicit growers of marijuana. That as soon as I tell people that I have a hydroponic greenhouse, they all roll their eyes and go, "Ooh, weed!" It's like, no, kohlrabi, tomatoes, peppers. But hydroponics is a favorite of illicit or even licit marijuana growers because it's so efficient and so easy to control. So they really brought about revolution in the technology, that there are computerized nutrient dosers where they keep a 24/7, 365 awareness of where the nutrient is at. And these dosers will add nutrient based on the computer output and all that stuff. No, I don't go that far.
Okay. Do you have to, so you were talking a little bit about, if in the event that the power went out, that you have, like the propane heater things, when you are just normal course of, like if you're in the middle of really, really cold part of the winter and the lights are running, do you have to supplement any heat at that point?
Oh, I do. On the wall over here, I have a 35,000 BTU ventless natural gas heater. And throughout the winter, that thing's on, and it will keep the temperatures in the greenhouse around 60 degrees Fahrenheit, because that's where I want them to be. Now, I do something here which many may find to be counterintuitive. I ventilate this greenhouse in the winter. I regularly ventilate the greenhouse because if I didn't ventilate, and I'm talking about 1 minute every 15 minutes, that kind of thing. If I didn't ventilate the greenhouse, then the highly moisture laden air that comes in contact with the glazing would precipitate that water out and would be raining in here. The humidity would be just outrageous. So what I do is, by way of ventilation, I draw very relatively dry cold air in, and I vent warmer, heavily laden, moisture-filled air out. And in that way, I can keep the humidity in the greenhouse around 50%. And the plants like that, because the greater the delta between the plant and the air, they find that the act of transpiration to be easier, takes less effort, and it's more efficient. And so you can't let your plants be surrounded by 100% humidity all the time, or you're just not going to get there.
Gotcha. Okay.
What else you getting in the chat there?
So it says, I use vermiculture runoff mixed with water at the 10-to-1 solution for starting cuttings. Don't know if it works for hydroponics or not.
It might. Now, vermiculture, does that mean that that's like tea made from worm poop?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Early on, I had to make the choice because a lot of the videos on YouTube are made by folks who love aquaculture, the fish poop method of providing nutrition to their plants. And watched a lot of those videos and discovered something. Most of the folks who are the most excited about aquaculture are those just starting.
Yeah, right.
You don't find very many saying 5 years I've been doing this and it works great. Yeah. What you find is tragedy. My fish died last night, or my nitrate to whatever, nitrate, and they got to do all kinds of chemical changes with third-party microbes to make the nutrient solution compatible to the plants and stuff. Anyways, I decided not to do the fish thing. If I want to raise fish, by golly, I'll raise fish. But I'm not going to try to use their poop to provide nutrition to my plants. First of all, it appears to be far too difficult and fraught with trouble. And also, I don't want my greenhouse smelling like a bait shop. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Do you find, this is a question from KB, do you find specific methods of hydroponics increase yield for specific plant varieties or plant types?
Well, I've found some things will grow here really well, and other things just don't seem to work out. I do not alter my nutrient formula for different cultivars. Everybody gets the same stuff. It's basically a tomato blend, and it works for kohlrabi, it works for peppers, it works for tomatoes, it works for romaine lettuce, it works for pak choi. So I don't tailor the nutrient to a specific cultivar. Everybody gets the same meal. It makes my life easier. My wife and I would love to be able to grow spinach in here. No joy, man. We can't seem to do it. I don't know what it is. We may try again, but I don't custom anything. For instance, there's some guys who actually change the bulbs in their growing lamps based on the stage of growth of their vegetation. My stuff's in all different stages, so I just run the same lamp. Anything else?
Gotcha. Yeah, so a message from Kathy. She said, do you know what the estimated costs are for the different setups that you have?
Oh golly, let me see. The tank, one of these 50-gallon stock tanks, I bought them at Tractor Supply. You can check my numbers here, but I think they were like $75. And then most of the other stuff was, thank goodness for Amazon. If you can think of it and just type it in the search, they got it. But a lot of the stuff I used here was related to drinking water purification, all the osmosis stuff, reverse osmosis stuff. And then the distribution is simple PVC pipe, elbows, and T's, and stuff like that. And then some of my stuff came out of aquarium supply people, like my compressor and the various outlets to the manifolds and stuff like that. Not huge money, but it might scare some folks off. I'm not going to tell you what we spent building the greenhouse. That's just an embarrassment.
When you do the flood and drain method, does that water, when you drain it, does that just go down the drain, or is there an alternate use for the water after it's been used the first pass?
Oh no, the water in the flood and drain beds. Here, let me see if I can walk you down there and I'll show you. Okay. And here we go. All right. So here's the flood and drain bed, right? And the level of the water is controlled by a standpipe. Oh gosh, there we go. Here we go. This is a standpipe down in here, and the level of the water is controlled by that drain right there in the standpipe. And when the pump shuts off in the reservoir, and the reservoir is down here, can you see it? I'm having a little hard time being my own cameraman. But there's a 55-gallon blue drum in a cradle underneath the flood and drain thing. And it is a closed circuit. The water is pumped up into the flood and drain bed, and then it drains back down into that reservoir. And this reservoir also has a float valve so that it maintains levels. I hope you're seeing this stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways.
And so how long can it go back and forth before you have to ultimately change the water?
I change the water out and clean everything up about once a year. Oh, hey, my ventilator just kicked on. I'll show that to you. So there's the exhaust fan, 24-inch, variable speed. And then in the other end of the greenhouse, I have motor operated louvers that allow inlet air. Here, let me show you them. Oh, it's refreshing because the, can you see those louvers?
Yeah.
Okay. And there they go.
Ah.
And if you remember, I said we do ventilate about 1 minute every 15. And that's to keep the humidity down.
Gotcha. Huh. Do you primarily propagate by cuttings and clones, or do you do seed growth as well?
Almost never do I do cuttings.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I do everything from seed, and these are great questions. And I'm going to show you my nursery. Ooh, hardly see. Here we are. Under here, doing this one-handed. You see these guys?
Oh, yeah. Very cool.
What I do is I plant seeds into the rock wool cubes, and these are little sprouts here. See them?
Yep.
Okay, and I do that sprouting and nursery work in this little rack at the west end of the greenhouse. They have heat pads and grow lights on a timer so that they get that diurnal thing going right away. And once they grow to a size that appears to be, like they'll survive if I put them in a net cup, I transfer them over. I don't do any cuttings at all. Let me back up on that. I have started some tomato plants. When I pulled suckers that got away from me, I'll just stick them in a rock wool cube and off they go.
Yeah. So how do you for the seeds, how do you maintain temperature? What is there an ideal temperature that you're shooting for with the seed?
Well, I try to keep it above 70, and sometimes it runs up into the low 90s. I don't have very good control over it. The nursery things, these the sort of thing you start your plants for the garden in, that has the transparent top over the opaque bottom, and I just try to keep them wet, keep them warm, give them light, and it seems to work okay.
Okay. So I got a question from Brandy. Looks like a two-part question. Oops. Question from, it says user. Due to moisture and humidity concerns, do you need a dedicated greenhouse for this to avoid mold issues inside of a home?
Oh. Well, I don't think any of us want our homes to become muggy, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
Yeah. If you want to just do a couple pots in front of a bay window or something, I don't see that. There's no issues there. I don't think you have any trouble. I mean, hell, my grandmother had houseplants all over the place. She never had any mold issues that I know of. You could do it small scale. upstairs in the kitchen. They even sell these mini hydroponic operations so you can have your own basil and stuff right in the kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
And
Right.
for what it's worth, I cut a piece off of my larger basil because the wife says, "Hey, I need some." And so I brought it up. I dropped it in a glass of tap water 2 weeks ago. It's still green. It's still in good shape, sitting there next to the kitchen sink.
What do you see as far as benefits from these methods versus traditional growing in soil?
I don't have to water them. I know what and how much nutrient they've got on hand at any given time. I do have 2 soil-based plants here. I have a Meyer lemon and I have a key lime tree, these miniatures, and they are in soil. I supplement them with random amounts of fertilizer and I water them the best I can, try not to kill them. But I'm not a dirt guy indoors. I just haven't done it. You know what? A lot of people do, and it works out fine for them.
Have you tried, speaking of medium, Guy Weber has a question, have you tried Oasis cubes instead of rock wool?
I don't know what that is. Are you talking about coconut coir or?
That's what I was wondering, is it might be coconut coir, but I don't know, I'm not sure.
Yeah. No, I'm one of those guys who finds something that works and I just kind of go with it. You know, if I reach a point where I can't afford the current media or medium, I may then experiment because I'll be forced to. But right now, I have a ample supply of those cubes and plenty of expanded clay pellets and stuff. I see YouTube videos all the time about folks say, "Hey, you don't need that. All you need is a pool noodle. You could just cut a pool noodle and use that." Well, that's cool. I may use that someday, but right now, what I'm doing is working, and
Yep.
I got other stuff.
Yeah. Yep. So as far as like your total amount of food production, you have an idea maybe over the course of a year? I mean, is there just approximately like how much of your greens you're able to produce as a percentage?
Yeah. As far as what goes into a salad, we produce 85% of it right here.
Gotcha. Cool.
Tomatoes, the bulk of our tomatoes are grown in the garden because we grow hundreds of pounds of tomatoes, in the garden to make sauce, to make canned tomatoes and things like that, salsa and things like that. But if you want tomatoes in your garden salad, we got them coming right here. I discovered kohlrabi just by accident. I didn't even know what that stuff was. And now I grow kohlrabi like crazy. And I'm on a keto kind of diet. That's a sad thing. I miss pasta. But anyways, this kohlrabi is great. I'll harvest one, peel the leaves off, cut it up into pieces, put a little salt on it, and I'm good. It's really nice.
And you said as far as the summer months when it starts to get really hot, you'll put that shade over the outside. Do you find that your production has to dip down in the middle of the summer, or is it?
You know what? With that 70% shade cloth, which is the highest percentage shade cloth they make, allowing nominally 30% of the sunlight through, my plants do fine.
Gotcha.
You see, in the summertime, the intensity of the sunlight is brutal. And so we get along quite well in the summertime in spite of the shade cloth.
Gotcha. Do you ever take so ones that you have started in the rock wool indoors, do you ever use those for plant starts outdoors in your regular garden?
No, I do the old fashioned stuff where I, take a styrofoam cup, put some potting soil in it and start my starts there. Now I will dedicate some shelf space in here in the next few weeks, as a matter of fact, to get some starts going, sets. Um, we've had mixed success with sets. Last year we had our greatest amount of success, but we still dropped like $100 at the nursery buying other things. Um, so we start almost all of our tomatoes here. We've gone to seed starting in the garden when the soil temperature is warm enough, our zucchini and things like that. But what we do is we have a tradition as a family. We go down to this big Mennonite greenhouse and nursery place, and we just go crazy. We buy all kinds of stuff. Oh, broccoli, yeah, we gotta have that. Last year we did Brussels sprouts. Holy mackerel, we had Brussels sprouts coming out of our ears, but everybody likes them, so hey, there you go.
Gotcha. I missed a question by Brandy earlier. So when you were talking about Morgan County seeds, she said, is there any place locally where we could actually go to see a setup like this? Any
You
suggestions?
can come here.
Okay. All right.
I'm delighted to show the place. I mean, if somebody wants to come look at it, you're certainly welcome to come. But when Paul and I first met, I discovered that Cortland you can't get there from here. I mean, it's just, it's a long ways. These Finger Lakes have a way of dicing up and compartmentalizing the region to where you got to go across the top or across the bottom.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would suggest then for anyone who wants then to contact you on your through the YouTube, or should you want me to give your email? You want to give your email?
Yeah, give out my email. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
So that's R Mussack, Mussack.
No, stop.
Sorry, K. Sorry, I've got my glasses. It must be a sign of old age. I find myself looking over the top of my glasses all the time now.
I know.
K Mussack, Mussack at rochester.rr.com.
Yep, that's it. Or go to my YouTube channel and make a comment, and if you dare put it out publicly. What you could do on the YouTube, I don't know if the intelligence agencies think this is a good idea, but if you post a comment with your email or phone number and then immediately delete it, I'll get it, but no one else gets to read it.
Gotcha. That's a good idea. So speaking of intelligence agencies, we're as we're kind of growing and evolving this format, always trying to look at best practices as far as helping to maintain anonymity, and easy for me to say, for those who want to remain not known. And so that sounds like a good strategy to do that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of a guy named Snowden, and the fact is, anonymity is an illusion. There's no such thing anymore.
Right. So Anne asked, so where is here? Where are you based? Kevin, you still there? It's like the very mention of Snowden and your camera pros. while we're waiting for Kevin to come back online, let me just say, so at the end of the what we've decided from a format perspective is we're going to allow time at the end of the second segment for anybody who wants to just kind of open dialogue about any number of things, to really kind of open it up. We At the end of the last one, we had some really nice conversation, and it just seems like it's a great time to be able to chat. And one of the things that this format with Zoom was really kind of as Kevin said, it was born out of the fact that the Finger Lakes are a little bit cut off, and we were in the summer months, late fall, into the early part of winter, doing meetups in person at a nature center in the Cortland area. And just as we started to get into COVID spikes and super cold weather, wanted to have an ability to continue to have content, and get people together, like-minded folks. I think it's great to be able to interact, and we will, as we are now coming back into summer months, soon be meeting again monthly. And we're gonna, for a period of time, probably keep both formats going, keep the monthly Zoom call, and still be getting together in person. And so there's a couple of things that we have on our horizon as far as what the in-person Zoom, or sorry, the in-person meetups. We have a couple of topics similarly when we get together in person. And some of the things that we're talking about is we're going to do some canning that would be of meats. Sometimes that's an area where people haven't necessarily been familiarized, and so we'll actually go through canning raw chicken, and things like corn nixtamalization, where you basically have the ability to get your body's uptake of the nutrient in corn, is not capable of doing that until you do this process. So we'll do why and how to nixtamalize corn. We're going to do again, it's all kind of centered on the themes that we talk about, which is self sustaining, long-term methods for being self-sufficient, and so it did with that is Kevin, are you back on with us yet?
I'm back. My
Oh,
phone
great. Okay.
overheated.
There we go. All right. Perfect.
So where were we? I mean, are you done? I mean,
No, yeah, I was
I
just
could,
I was just kind of filling time, waiting for you to come back on. So
okay. Are there more questions in the
let me see.
chat?
So I've got from Guy Weber, J.R. Peters has a good 2-part hydroponic fertilizer also. Oh, I know. So yeah, so it was, I know. So we talked about Snowden just before you went away, and I think it was in the vicinity of the question from Anne, is whereabouts are you located?
Oh, okay. Well, the name Castle Hydroponics comes from the fact that I live in a small crossroads community called Seneca Castle. I lie about halfway between Canandaigua and Geneva, New York, just a few miles north of routes 5 and 20. As far as a geographical feature, Mount Trashmore is right there on 5 and 20. It's one of the large, large solid waste places.
Gotcha.
And,
Yeah.
whatever. It's got to go somewhere, I reckon.
So
And
when you say Mount Trashmore, that's Seneca Meadows or?
no, that's the companion to Seneca
Oh,
Met.
I got you. Okay. All right.
This one's in Flint, New York. It's on Route 5 and 20, about halfway between Geneva and Canandaigua. And as a ham guy, I always look at that mountain thinking, that's where I want a repeater. Get up
Yeah,
on top
right.
of that trash mountain.
That's funny.
So yeah, if somebody would like to see this in person, I'd be delighted to show it to them. Just give me a heads up. Just don't knock on the door one day. Let me know. We babysit for 4 grandchildren here, 5 days a week. So don't be disturbed by the fact that it looks like an explosion at a Toys R Us.
All right. Any other questions at all? All right. Well, Kevin, thank you so much. I really, this has been very educational. I'm definitely looking forward to, I know with COVID, I've been meaning to get out there the last couple of months, and I'm definitely looking forward to coming out and
Yeah.
seeing it firsthand. So,
well, our dear leader mentioned in a speech the other night that by the 4th of July, this will all be behind us.
all right. Well, yeah, it's definitely been a limiting factor as far as some of the gathering and everything. And so,
It sure has.
yeah,
I'll be glad to see it gone.
yeah, yeah. All right. So, so I'm going to transition into the second segment. I've got a deck that I've put together that is on long-term food preservation. It's about really strategies and techniques. It's a broad spectrum of and let me just see. Is everybody seeing my screen or no? No, I need to do something, I think. Here, let me do this. Gotta go back and say, oops, go back one more time and say, there we go. Share screen. There we go. Okay. So this is really, like I said, overall strategies and techniques in terms of capturing abundance and being able to, in terms of being preparedness minded. One of the things that, is kind of a basic tenet is the ability to have long-term stores of food, in the event of even something very simple and mundane as a power outage, just to be able to have that readily accessible food supply. So you're not one of the folks who's, having to go stand in line at a store. This presentation is really going to be kind of, like I said, talking about various methods, but overall strategies in terms of, throughout the year, there are various times when, abundance, plays a huge role in how we're able to capture it efficiently and get things stored away for use throughout the year. And so we're gonna, like I said, kind of cover all of the various methods for food storage and preservation, but just at kind of a high level to a degree. And as I said, when we get in the summer months as we're coming up, there'll be a variety of different methods that we'll actually do in person together for those who are available to come and meet in person. So my kind of motto is on food storage is self-reliance plus sustainability equals peace of mind. I just feel better knowing that I don't necessarily have to rely upon the outside inputs in the instance of an emergency. Part of that is the ability to squirrel away what inputs you will need, and part of that is the ability to produce those inputs. What like I said, what we're going to do is kind of go through I think, not just the advantages, which you can see, down below, obviously, reducing waste and saving money, which are huge. Um, but how we can, even together as a group, be able to very, very cost effectively. I've done, as part of the group that I travel to monthly down in southeastern PA. We've done a group bulk food buy that we did bucketing as one of the monthly meetups, and it was a lot of fun, great camaraderie built, and very good to just kind of go through the physical steps. I'm going to talk about them a little bit here, but I do want to plan for some time later in the summer to do for any of those interested. And I would encourage you now, whether it's, a message in the comments, or if you want to direct message me or text me or whatever. But if you have an interest in being a part of a bulk food buy, definitely let me know. I've done several now, and it's a great feeling. I mean, a lot of the experts will say, you should have between, 500 and 800 pounds of food stored away in long-term storage per person. And I think probably a fair number of us follow a couple of thought leaders, specifically, who advocate for the 800-pound side of that spectrum. So anyway, so this, types of preservation, obviously, everyone has heard of a root cellar in the past. I mean, a root cellar can be, quite honestly, something that you put down in your basement, or if you have any area where you're able to maintain a consistently low temperature, maybe a closet that's on concrete floor of some type. But just cold storage, obviously, we're going to be using some refrigeration to get to that point, freezing, canning. And there's two different, as far as canning, I kind of distinguish between, based on what it is that you're canning, the method that you're using, and what's involved, obviously, dehydration, pickling, and then buckets and Mylar, and water glass. I use, in some instances, and we're going to talk about that, a kind of a multi-step process where, like I said, and in the fall, when you've got so much coming at you out of the garden, the analogy I use all the time is trying to drink from a fire hose. I mean, I took 40 bushels off the garden last fall, and I don't know anyone who could eat that. I mean, as it's coming off. The bottom line is all the time and effort and energy, sweat, blood, and tears that you put into getting to that point. What a shame it is if you're not able to capture it. So what I'm going to go through has kind of been my strategy on that, and all of these methods come into play. But first, really determining what kind of foods you're looking to store, and obviously the various types of food, so perishable, you're in many instances going to be looking at some kind of immediately freezing it to capture it, and then from there, if you can dehydrate it, or if you can have it be um, saved through you just freezing it up until you're ready to use it, or whatever. So semi-perishable, there is some uh, variation and thought on grains. I'm with the bucketing method, if done correctly, even though we've got the grain products under semi-perishable, those should be able to safely last you up to 20 years if they're, if you're following the method using O2 absorbers, you're getting out all the air, you're putting in some diatomaceous earth to keep out, any kind of bugs. But a lot of your grains are semi-perishable as far as their classification. And then things like dried beans and spices, where quite honestly, you really don't have to do much of anything to keep those. I mean, you obviously want to keep from, having dust and stuff, flying into them or what have you, but they're shelf stable. So canning, pros and cons. Obviously, with the pandemic, for the first time, I think a lot of folks who maybe hadn't been doing canning in the past, there was a lot of people who were trying their first go of it. And as a result, the supplies became fairly challenging to get. And so as a con, I just kind of start with the fact that, if you are going to be thinking of canning, in the upcoming fall months, you're going to want to start procuring those supplies. And I recommend Uline. So Uline has, great pricing on jars. There was a period where they were limiting how many you could get at any given time. But it's I only with the large jars, quart and 2 quart jars, did I find them running low on supplies, even at the most challenging parts of the year. And as far as buckets are concerned, I've gotten plenty of the food grade buckets that oh, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I just would plug Walmart for the buckets. But anyway, so best practices and supplies. I would just say with the canning that, if you're thinking that this might be a strategy that you would employ, if things go crazy and you haven't started to practice and familiarize yourself with the process of canning, that's a mistake, because anyone who's done any large amount of canning can tell you that you're going to have some failed attempts. I mean, in some instances, plenty of failed attempts. I mean, as you go across the spectrum of trying to can various things, there's going to be, just certain challenges that you'll encounter. So familiarizing yourself with the array of different types of things that you eat and that you produce, so anyway, and then pros, I think we talked about, the fact is there's a lot of things that you have frozen currently or refrigerated, that if God forbid we hit a long-term power outage, if you've got access to, a heat source that's not electric dependent, you do have the ability to catch that, meat, let's say, as it's thawing, and can it for long-term use. But again, not the kind of thing that you want to be in a situation having never done it before. It's just kind of go to freezing. Like I said, I use freezing for a lot of kind of intermediary steps. When my go-to with a lot of, like, Brussels sprouts, for example. I mean, we had a metric ton of Brussels sprouts. I don't even know exactly how. I bet you, just for thereabouts, I bet you it was probably 5 gallon buckets filled with Brussels sprouts this year. And most of them, what I would do is just simply blanch them and throw them in the freezer. With the greens, same thing. There's so many of the vegetables that you can just blanch and freeze. The bottom line, though, is that's good for about a year max. You want to get those used up in the course of the year. Deer. I mean, this year, we got 6 deer, processed 6 deer. When you're in the middle of, a time of the year where you're busy wanting to be out hunting, and you've now got this, meat mass that has to be dealt with in a rapid time period, how best to get that in So I just want to skip, we'll come back to that slide in a second, but what I recommend, again, this is a strategy that I would definitely suggest is I have a tall cabinet with, instead of buying your traditional small rolls, of retail sourced food wrap, go to a large industrial size roll and suspend it high, over your head. And what I'm using from a gravity standpoint is so much neater and cleaner, because you want to be able to get every last bit of air that you can get out of that, into the individual cells. So when I'm freezing, I'm taking the gallon freezer bags, and I'm taking, basically, bricks about yay big of meat, and or roast, I mean, could be larger, but I'm wrapping it first, and then putting it into the freezer bags. And with this, having it, coming down, you've got gravity is kind of working with you. Trying to do it on a flat surface, I've always found challenging, because the cling wrap likes to cling to itself, obviously, and it is more efficient hanging it from the top, working downward. So basically, again, quick preparation with freezing. You don't have a tremendous amount of material. Like I said, I've got, being a prepper, I've probably got 3 of those industrial size rolls of the cling wrap, and tons of freezer bags. But I use it as a first step in a number of things. I mean, when I'm making sausage, for example, I'll take venison or whatever the meat happens to be. I'll first get it, frozen until I have time I'm going to thaw everything out, get the grinder out, and we're going to mix it. You're going to take all your spices and run it through, and then repackage it and freeze it. But just buying yourself that time is sometimes critical. The negative, obviously, when we lose power in that event, you're a ticking clock as to how long that meat has before it's not good any longer. And I've got packs of meat that I've had in the freezer for longer than 6 months, but the recommendation is 6 months. The recommendation on cans is, of things that you jar can, is a year. Certainly, again, based on your doing these things, you'll find that that's not always a hard and fast rule. But uh, so we talked about freezing, dehydration. Now, so again, when we talk about just over the course of a year, I've got a couple of these. So you see, these are cherry tomatoes that are on just one of those little plastic rack Walmart variety dehydrators. I've got a couple of those. One of them has a high powered, fan, and it really heats it up. There's pros and cons to this. It's great, just to be able to put your food out and kind of slowly, do trays as you go. But like I said, I don't know that it's necessarily a kind of a one size fits all. For starters, like I do shiitake mushrooms, and I have personally, with dehydrating, gone to dehydrating my shiitakes in the sun, because of the fact that when you dry them in the sun, mushrooms have the ability to absorb vitamin D out of the sunlight, and now you've basically enriched those with vitamin D. And if you're using too high of a temperature during your dehydration process, there are certain vitamins that are lost. So just be aware, that is, a potential negative. but it's hard to beat the convenience of it. I use, so again, just I was just saying, of course, the year I use the fire all the time in the winter. I have a wood stove out in the garage, and so I've got drying racks, and that's where, like I said, I'll take things out of the freezer that I didn't have time to dehydrate, and I just wanted to, immediately, stop any uh process where, the food grade would become diminished in any way. So I package it, correctly, get it frozen for a period of time, and then, take it out and do my dehydration over the wood stove. When I've got a natural heat source that is a good dry heat source. Um, and I don't have to pay even to run the dehydrator at that point. Um, so this is an example. These are just some chili peppers, and again, once they've been dehydrated, you can, these are just, a couple of simple sealing lids. But as far as spices, I mean, I've got a ton of spices that I've just bought at stores, but I like to take things like the multitude of different peppers, and I'll try to label them usually because they vary in hotness. And then just pop them in the blender, and now you've got a pepper seasoning mix that you can use. But I'll store them in these containers exactly the way you see. And I say, I mean, in terms of preparedness, the one thing I always I'm I try to resist being a hoarder, okay? But I recommend, if you anytime you encounter a variety of different container types, become a person who has on hand, a vast array of different types of containers, because that's, I mean, this intermediary step, like you're seeing, these are the things that sit out on my counter. I mean, and so these are just, on the right, they're just Tupperware containers. And so when I go to one of my 5-gallon buckets, and I cut open the Mylar bag, now that O2 absorber that was in there is shot. I'm gonna have to reseal that bag when I'm ready to put it away. And so I don't want to be in and out of those Mylar bags too frequently. So having these good intermediate steps, is about a variety of different size containers that are okay from a decor standpoint to have out on your kitchen counter, so to speak. Here's just an example of a few. I mean, these are I've got a ton of them. Those are peas, and the one on the left, and I've got cranberries and cherries and strawberries, and you name it. Obviously you saw the bananas. Do a lot of different dried fruits, and those are ones that I bought in one of last year's bulk buys. And So it kind of, augment some of the things that I am growing with other things that we're buying. But so pickling, I mean, in terms of canning, honestly, this is one of the easiest things you can do. You can, if you're using a brine solution, you don't even necessarily have to use the water bath method. If you're gonna throw it in the fridge, if you have a good acidic uh, vinegar brine that you're putting it in. Um, so pickling is a good way to, things like your, peppers and carrots, and you name it, obviously cucumbers. But I've done pickling with the with the shiitakes, and I've got a couple of other mushroom varieties this year that we're going to do some pickling with. It's a good method. Again, short term. It's not I'm not talking full-fledged canning at this point. I'm just talking get it in the brine, get the lid on, and usually pop it in the fridge, type of a thing. Cold and cool storage. We did, I touched base on, where, you might want to in your house when we're, root vegetables, they're going to keep a good long while when we're grabbing, root vegetables in the fall. If as long as you're able to give them a dark, fairly dry, and definitely cool environment. Um, you know, Obviously, like I said, cold storage, you're dependent upon refrigeration, so electricity is required. But a lot of those root vegetables you can store obviously in a root cellar easily. Um, I So this, I want to spend a few minutes on this slide. This one is just the most recent of the in fact, I'm going to zoom right in on this for a second here. Most recent of my bucketing operations here. Oops, oh, of course and so what you're looking at is, so these are the Mylar bags up on top, and you can get them in variety of different sizes, and I recommend having different size buckets. So you've got gallon, half gallon, and sorry, 5 gallon, 3 gallon, and 1 gallon. There we go. And so some of the things that obviously the regular lids that so I go to, like I said, Walmart. Typically I'll get the food grade buckets there. I've got them in a variety of different places. It just seems like Walmart has them the least expensive as a general rule. And then go to Uline to get these screw down lids. And I've got a variety, so you can see over in the corner of the photo, a variety of different lids. The white ones that snap down work well too. I just like for certain things, like here's a prime example. I've got boxes of salt and jelly making materials. So those, instead of putting in the bags, I would put one of those screw down lids on, because I'm just gonna unscrew the lid, reach down and grab one of the boxes, and then screw the lid back on. Nice tight seal. But for the long-term stuff, like here's whole corn. So like I said, we're going to talk about nixtamalization, whole corn by itself. And this is just regular, like from Tractor Supply. It's feed grade corn. All right. It's not corn that is terribly expensive. I think for a 50-pound bag, you're talking like less than $8. Usually you can find it for almost half of that. But as long as you're putting the diatomaceous earth in it, and so what that is, diatomaceous earth is going to prevent, it's basically granulated shellfish, and it's got a lot of very sharp edges that will kill not only the larvae, but it'll kill the adult insects. It basically just will wipe out any insect activity. And grain, regardless of where you're getting it from, it's almost impossible to ensure that there is no insect in it. And so that's where this diatomaceous earth, it's completely edible. I know that there are some people who actually eat it as part of a dietary supplement. I'm not advocating that, and it doesn't take a lot. You're basically gonna, so in a scenario like this, I would take my, corn, or there's wheat there, and then rice, and then I got a thing of beans down below. Basically, you'd fill your bag so that you've got just enough room to get the lid on. You're going to seal that, part way, usually with a 2x4 and a regular iron. and then drop your O2 absorber. So those are a pack of O2 absorbers. I'll put the camera on in a minute and show you what those look like. And it's, it's important when you're doing your bucketing operation. You want to have it planned out because each of the O2 absorbers comes in a pack. Usually there's 20 to a pack. So that means, if you're using, bucket size of 1 to 1, you want to make sure you got 20 buckets to seal up. Um, I'm using, like I said, a variety of different bucket sizes based on kind of, again, a strategy of access. I'll have certainly, with the wheat, I'm gonna, put those up in primarily 5 gallons. With that field grade corn, I'm gonna put that up in the five gallon buckets. I mean, with rice, I've got a lot of smaller size containers. With beans, the various things that you're accessing more, you want to certainly have the smaller sizes. But again, just before you get started, and usually what I'll do is I'll get a canning jar ready, and as soon as you pop open one of those bags of the O2 absorbers, throw all of them into a canning jar and seal it down tight. Because if you feel that O2 absorber start to get warm and into the hot range, it's expending the effectiveness of that to do its job. So you want to have your setup all ready to go, um, and use those O2 absorbers quickly. So let me just escape back out of there. And yeah, and up on top, those are just my seeds. I keep those in my same area as my root cellar stock. I keep my seeds in that same room. Um, but yeah, I mean, as far as advantages, easy to store. Hey, so here again, strategies and techniques. So strategy is when you've bucketed 500 to 800 pounds of long-term stored food. And when I say the 5 to 800 pounds, that's going to generally be primarily, in the 5 gallon buckets, with, like I said, the stuff you're going to use out the course of the year or so, in the smaller buckets. But those buckets are, you're talking on average, you're talking probably about 40 buckets of, what are you going to do with 40 buckets? Some suggestions are, if you for a standard bed, if you get a nice throw to go over them instead of using a typical bed frame, it's a great place is so you've got your buckets all sealed up, and these are the ones that you're not going to be accessing with any degree of regularity. You put a nice throw over the top of it and set your bed up right on top. Or small coffee tables, perfect. I mean, you can get a decent board over the top of them. It looks like a cube because you've got a nice whether it's a tapestry or a tablecloth or what have you, over the top. And you would never know. I mean, it's incorporating that food into a temperature controlled environment where basically you're just taking advantage of what would otherwise be essentially dead space. Because I mean, not all of us have a walk-in basement. Not all of us have a good sizable attic space where the temperature doesn't just go into the crazy zone. I would definitely recommend those first. If you've got attic space where you can, maybe put a whole house fan in to prevent, you know, periods of tremendously high temps, or a basement, that's a first choice always. But if you're looking, where you can keep that volume of food, those are some good ideas. But again, it's extremely inexpensive, and the peace of mind, I think, is well worth it. These are so just I overall, I use these for my quick freeze methods more than anything. Um, you can take meat, for example, throw them in these. It's a vacuum sealer, and you can buy them in from price range all the way from you know, uh, generally the ones that start out in the $75 range are, not horrible, but realistically, you want to probably be in the $125 range, and they go all the way up to, I've seen them, as high as like 375. But those bags, basically, you cut them to length, you seal one end, you drop your stuff in, you put the bag in, and it sucks out all the air and seals the back side. And now you've got a pack that's ready to go in the freezer. Like I said, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll use that as an intermediate, just quick, get it in the freezer, and then I'll come back, I'll, break those open, thaw them out, break them open, and then I'll use, you can see my sausage mixes there, and make up, so now I'm making, final product, but I'm doing it in the middle of the winter time when, things are, have slowed down, you're not quite so busy. And certainly, for those of us that are hunters, the worst time to be doing something like that is right in the middle of hunting season. So again, Uline, aside from the jars, another great place to find food bags is Uline. All kinds of supplies. So if you any of those of you that don't have the number, I'd go ahead and write that down. It's uline.com, and where's their phone number? This is a picture of one of the bucketing sessions that we did in the Eastern PA, food buy, which is a lot of fun. Like I said, I mean, it's great fellowship, and for those who haven't done it before, it's really good to do it with someone who has lots of experience at it the first few times. This was that was our last haul, so one of the members of the group rented a trailer, and we just went to the larder and picked up a bunch of food that we all bucketed together. This is just an example. Again, spices are, the kind of thing you can buy them inexpensively, and you could see the various size containers there, the small ones and the big ones, and store, I mean, a ton of them, as long as they're out of any you're not getting stuff flying into them, they're going to last a long time. Okay, so here's the pictures of the food absorbers, or the O2 absorbers, sorry. And I don't know if you can see that this is uh, fresh US. Um, and uh, oh, and here's a good source for vacuum sealers, both the machines and the bags. So Vacuum Sealers Unlimited, and of course my photo cropped off the phone number. Apologize about that, but you can find them online. Vacuum Sealers Unlimited. All right, so then here's just a photo of, just kind of having all of your stuff in one spot. But all right, so with that, I'm gonna just go back and see if there's any questions in the comments, and I invite anybody to come off mute. And again, I'd say the last half hour here, if aside from any questions, if there's anyone that would like to I'd like to if I can just figure out how to do this here. Oh, isn't that crazy? I can't. Got a weird thing going on here. Oh, I know why. Stop share. That's why. Okay. Sorry about that. I forgot I had it on share screen. Um, okay, so yeah, so let me just see if there's questions in the chat here.
Hey, Paul, I don't know about chat. How's that work?
So if over to the right, there should be an arrow that shows arrow to the right there, and down below you can just type in a message. But again,
Oh,
like I
okay.
said, at this point, I mean, I'm anybody who wants to come off mute. If you're on mute, you're more than welcome to just
Hey, Paul, if I could, I'd like to
sure.
just throw this out. Available on the internet in the form of a PDF is the LDS Preparedness Manual,
Hmm.
which is, I'm not LDS, but they've been doing this sort of stuff for a long, long time. And this has got the numbers, it's got the checklists. They've
Hmm.
been very thoughtful about this. And I believe that the church actually employs full timers to keep this stuff up to date. And it goes into great detail into the sort of stuff that Paul just finished talking about. And, how many pounds of this and how many pounds of that? Well, they actually go into the nutrition aspects of things and say, hey, look, we got to have 4,000 calories, blah, 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 blah. And it's really a great book. Mine's kind of old. It dates back to 2012, but there's 500 pages in there for nothing.
Ah, cool. Yeah, I'll look that up. Sounds like a great resource, definitely.
Also, you can purchase long-term storage stuff from the LDS warehouse if you've got
Ah,
one in your area.
hmm.
They're open to the public, and number 10 cans full of potato flakes or dried apples or all kinds of stuff. Dried milk. Milk is particularly difficult to store, because it goes bad so easily, and so you need a nitrogen purged can, that kind of thing. But I would search for your local Bishop's Warehouse LDS and find their hours and just go look. And we've laid in a bunch of stuff in number 10 cans. It's not free, but they got all kinds of cool stuff. That's all.
Cool. And do you know, I've heard of places where you can actually bring, where you, the way I heard, and maybe I'm wrong, is that you can actually bring your food and they'll actually can it in number 10 cans. Is that something that they do, or is it all their
Well,
food that they do that with?
years ago, you used to be able to go to the warehouse or storehouse, whatever name they go by, and you could personally package bulk foods. You buy it by the giant 40-pound bag. You stand
Gotcha.
at their table with their can machine, and the authorities stepped in and says, you can't do that anymore. All right.
Ah, gotcha.
And so, but I do believe that many of the warehouses, and there are fewer and fewer of them anymore, sadly, will rent and or loan you the canning machine. Now, this is a
Hmm.
several $1,000 piece of gear, and sell you the cans and lids and stuff like that. So that might be something you want to look into.
Ah, okay. Yeah, that sounds really good idea. All right. So next month will be on April the 10th. Will be the Zoom meetup, and we've got for that one an expert who is going to be talking with us about active shooter response. Basically, just strategies of being such as self-awareness and being essentially safe if you find yourself in a scenario like that. He does actually provide training as a service. That's his business. He has a gun shop in Elmira Heights, and does active training for folks who are interested in that. And so he'll be our primary speaker next month, and then we'll also be showing microgreens, which is a seed bed that's laid down in soil that's grown in artificial lighting, and basically they're germinated to a point of what's called a cotyledon. It's just a small, almost like you're growing a layer of grass that is then harvested for consumption. And so that'll be the two segments for April the 10th. And I would definitely encourage anyone who has something that they would like to speak about or share to the group. Definitely like to have people participating with their area of expertise. And so um, with that, there was one thing that came to mind when I was going through the presentation on the long-term food preservation I did not talk about, and that is a method called water glassing. If you're so with eggs, we're now entering the season where all of your hens are going to start laying soon, and sometimes it's hard to again just kind of capturing the abundance, so to speak, when you're in that period where they're all laying simultaneously. If you're trying to figure out a method to store those eggs for a long period of time, water glassing is you're going to take basically field grade lime, and you basically take a 5 gallon bucket of water, submerge the eggs in water, and keep it can stay at regular ambient room temperature. But I leave it in the garage, so it's quite cold out there. I prevent it from freezing, but it stays chilly when the wood stove is running. The bucket of water is warming up and cooling down, but generally it's staying in a fairly consistent range. But what you'll do is you take this. So this is calcium hydroxide, regular field grade lime. Dump it in the bucket, and it produces a brine that allows those eggs to last for up to a year without actual refrigeration. So as long as it's ambient food temperature, and now it's critical, absolutely critical, that those eggs not be cracked in any way, shape, or form. There can't be any imperfections in the shell. And fairly clean. You don't want to wash them, but fairly clean, and those eggs will last for up to a year. And then this, yeah, so like I said, with that calcium hydroxide or lime, basically this is the food grade version. And food grade version is used for when you're doing that corn nixtamalization. And I did mention so O2 absorbers. So here's an example of a small pack. It's nice to get them in the smaller quantities. This is 10, and that just lets you, like I said, if you don't have enough to take advantage of all 20, once you cut it open, you want to try to get them in smaller packs. And then this is diatomaceous earth, and that's the stuff, like I said, that any of those field grains you're going to want to drop a little bit of that in there, and it just will make sure that you have killed off any insects and prevented anything from growing inside of your food there. So
Paul, I have a couple questions.
okay, go ahead.
Where do you go to get your O2s and Mylar bags?
So the best
I think we froze.
the best place is Uline, in my opinion. They didn't run out
Because I go through Top Mylar or Discount.
okay. Top Mylar discount.
or Discount Mylar,
Discount Mylar.
or
I have actually.
topmylar.com,
Yep. Okay.
and then Discount Mylar.
All right. Yeah, Discount Mylar I've heard of, and I know that that's Pastor Joe and Bear both, promote that discount Mylar. So I'll check those out. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah,
I know Top Mylar's prices just went up with COVID.
okay.
But I use for freeze drying food, which is another food preservation method. And I know when you freeze dry food, it's recommended to at least get 7 mil to protect it, because anything less than 7 mil, from what I've been told, can let in the moisture, and they're not going to be truly as protective against your food for long-term storage. So everything I buy, I make sure it's at least 7 mil.
Okay. Do you want to, because I've never done freeze drying, do you want to speak a little bit about how the process you use to do that?
If you give me a second, the machine's running right now. I don't know if you can hear it in the background, but if you give me a second, I'll move so that way you guys can see the machine.
Okay, cool. While she's moving, there's one other thing that comes to mind, and that is I actually brought a picture of it. So as far as like something, from an investment standpoint, this is basically an industrial grade food slicer. Boy, that is a handy thing. And here's a couple of ways that this can come in handy. So certainly with producing your own meats, thin slice things that you lay out on those drying racks that you've treated in a brine solution that is going to make, jerky and that kind of thing is a great way to go. Becomes almost shelf stable. So you're going to dehydrate it and then still keep it in the refrigerator. But the other thing is with the slicer is just buying, even like instead of going to the deli and buying, a pound of turkey and a pound of ham every couple of weeks or what have you, you can get the big block of turkey and slice it all up and freeze it in small packages, portion size packages, which is going to last maybe, like a week's worth of turkey or so. So the slicing is a great thing. So yeah, so go ahead. I'm really curious to see this.
All right, so I just said was going to be done in an hour anyway, supposedly, but it needs more time because I know what's in here isn't going to be done. So this is the machine. There's a pump right there. Mine is an oil pump. They do make an oilless vacuum pump to go on it as well. And then inside here is just trays. Right now I've got scalloped potatoes and ham running, and fish and taco meat running.
Huh. Wow.
And then you take and you let's see, what do I got here? And then you package it in the Mylar bags, seal it up with an O2 absorber. This one happens to be egg whites. I ended up with a container of egg whites. What's this one? This is actual ham sandwich meat. The meat, the fattier the meat, why isn't that going back yet? Oh. The fattier the meat, the less long it will live. However, they claim that you'll still get like 5 years out of it or so. I'm trying to hold the laptop and do this.
That's fantastic. How much was your freeze drying unit?
The only place that does them for private use is Harvest Right. I got mine before the price increases, so I spent like $2,800 on it. And then I use the Dairyland oil from Tractor Supply.
Huh.
And it'll actually stay in refrigeration mode right now, or freeze mode, until I deal with it. And then I actually have, let's see how messy the counter is right now. I have a bunch of bags waiting to go. I upgraded it also comes with a little sealer, a little table sealer. But I upgraded it to a continuous sealer just because I got tired of doing the little hand sealer. Which the continuous sealers are around $200.
Now wait,
and
so when you say continuous sealer, what is that exactly?
It's kind of like a conveyor belt. You stick it in and it feeds right through it. If you go on Amazon and type in continuous sealer, it'll bring them up.
Okay.
But I do, most of my packages are all pints or quarts. I don't do too many in the very large packaging. I have a couple of 2 quarts or a couple of gallons, but most of them I do smaller for individual or, a couple people servings.
Interesting.
As opposed to, there's some stuff that, is larger portions ready to go for like soup mixes or that sort of stuff. But it's supposed to have a 25-year shelf life. And it's also supposed to have the process of freeze drying doesn't pull the nutrients out of it like dehydrating does. So it's supposed to maintain some of its nutritional, or better maintain the nutritional value as well. If you go to the Harvest Rights homepage for the freeze dryers, they have 3 different sizes. That one there is a medium, which each run does up to 10 pounds for the medium of food at a time.
Interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah, I may have to, it may be my next purchase. That's, I'm glad you brought that up. That's great.
And then I also had a question for you though on the gamma lids.
Okay, yeah.
I bought some of those, and like as I'm cleaning them, I tighten them down. I'll throw some water and dish soap in there, tighten them down to clean out the buckets to make sure they're clean before I start. But water leaks out of them, so how are they airtight? Whoops, my screen flipped.
Let me go grab. I'm gonna go grab one really fast. So there's two different grades of these. One of them actually ships without this little rubber seal, this rubber gasket, and
Right.
those are absolutely not what you're looking for. And I don't recommend buying these, trying to put seals on, but these are just the standard U-line ones, and
that's what I bought, was the U-line ones with the seals.
Huh.
But when you put them on, you put a little bit of water in it, it'll leak out.
Oh.
And if water can get out, then in my opinion, bugs and air can get in.
And so to be clear, what type of bucket are you putting them on?
The 5-gallon U-line buckets.
Okay, so here's a crazy thing is I get the small buckets from U-line. These gamma sealer lids came from U-line. However, the buckets that we use primarily are the Walmart food grade buckets. Right. So I don't know, can you tell, is the leak coming out of the area where the seal is? Or
when you put on the ring there in your left hand, when you put the screw part into the ring, there's
Yeah,
little
yeah.
notches in that ring. And it's leaking where those notches are on that ring.
Hmm.
Are yours set up the same way? Are there like little divots in that piece there in your?
No, I have seen them with the divots. This is smooth. I don't know if you can tell across the top there, but it's smooth. There's no
It would be on.
the other thing is on the inside of this now, there's a heavy gasket that's on the inside so that when this snaps down onto the bucket, it's compressing a foam rubber gasket between the bucket and the lid.
So mine, yeah, I think I have the exact same thing. I don't know if that'll help or not. See, mine have the seal as well. Okay, the light's not helping. They have the seal as well.
Yep.
And then on this piece, there is this raised edge around it, and every quarter around, there's a little cutout on that raised
Mm. Yeah.
edge.
No, yeah, this doesn't have any cutouts. So I can try to get the
I mean, it does have the gasket inside for it, but it's on the top section. Like I said, there's it looks solid, but can we get it so you can see right there? There's like a little, and then it's right there's another one.
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen, so there's regular bucket lids that have those too, where you basically, it's designed where you'd cut it with a knife and then pop it off, right?
No, this is solid. It's not designed to. It's the regular gamma seals from Uline.
Interesting. Well, and again, so I with the I like I said in the photos there, I've got obviously the regular snap down lids as well. The main thing is that if you're putting them in the Mylar bags, then your airtight seal is the Mylar bag first and foremost for the product. This is just a kind of an additional seal. I will say that with these as a test, what I've done is screw it down, once it's tight, once it's on there, take a rubber hammer and, tap it down, make sure it's down all the way. And then I get on it and stand on it. And if it's snapped, once it's snapped down, I'll re-tighten the lid and then stand on it again to see if I can hear any air blowing out, because I figure with the pressure of my weight standing on it, if it was going to have any air leakage at that point, you'd hear it, and I don't hear anything at that point, so I don't know. But it would be, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, you wouldn't want to put it in. I mean, I would never advocate just putting something in that and then throwing an O2 absorber in, and counting on that to be, your air seal. It's just kind of like an additional air seal. I don't store any I don't store anything that's not been evacuated of moisture with those lids. long term. So I guess that's, tell me again, what was it that you're storing in the bucket that is liquid?
I'm not putting liquid in there. I was simply cleaning the bucket.
Oh, I gotcha. Gotcha.
But I wanted to put just pasta in there without the Mylar.
Yeah.
And just have, because I mean, I spent extra money on a lid that's supposed to be airtight, so I should be able to
Yeah.
just put
Yeah. Right.
it in there.
I
So
gotcha.
if they're not going to work that way, then what's the point of spending the extra money? You can just put a regular lid on there if you're just putting Mylar in there.
Yeah. No, that's a good
And,
point.
and the Mylar bags, in my opinion, don't fit as nicely in the buckets as just being able to throw.
Right. Just the boxes. Yeah.
Well, I'm not
Yeah.
even, I dumped it out of the boxes. So like you can get 19,
Oh, I gotcha.
19,
Right.
20 boxes of penne and it's to a 5 gallon bucket.
Right.
You're not going to get anywhere near that if you're putting it in Mylar because
I got you. Oh yeah, sure. Right. Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yep. Hmm. I don't know. You know what? That's something I'll continue to do some research on my end. It's a good question. It's a really good question.
I mean, why are we spending extra money for gamma lids if that's not gonna
Yeah.
and using food grade buckets if we're putting it in Mylar, it shouldn't need to be a food grade bucket.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Hmm. Interesting. Well, something to consider for sure. Any other questions or practices that anybody wants to share? Thank you very much for showing me the freeze dry unit. I've heard of people getting them recently, and I had not really done much investigating. So I'm definitely going to be excited to see if I can get one of those in the near future.
The website, like I said, is harvestright.com. I do know that at one point they were back ordered like 6 months. They also have a layaway program. So you can pay up to, I'm trying to think, you have to pay like 3/4 of it. And then that final fourth, they will finance and do it into 1 month, 12 monthly payments, interest free, same as cash. So they do have a lot of options. They do try and sell them. They have sold a lot since the pandemic hit. And like I said, they were at one point back ordered. They have, do they have a Facebook page? They don't specifically have a Facebook page, but there are people that have Facebook pages for them that's all they discuss as freeze drying.
Cool. So just scrolling through the chat, there's a couple of questions. One said, have you, this is from owner, says, have you ever done a ham radio workshop? That is absolutely one of the, once we're, able to, in addition to the Zoom, have face-to-face meetups, I want to cover ham radio in great detail. And it's kind of one of the things where, the group that I'm actually leaving momentarily to go down and get together with down in Eastern Pennsylvania, we've got a resident expert on hams. I'm not that guy. I have my antenna up. I've got the radio and the handsets and everything. Finding the local repeaters. There's a multitude of steps getting the license. Getting prepared to take the test to get the license. And it's nice as groups kind of form. There's, in my experience, varying people who have expertise in a multitude of areas. And what I would suggest is that, like I said, we'll definitely have probably midsummer a ham session that we do. And if anyone has a particular affinity. Now, Kevin actually, by the way, he's got a video on his ham stuff. He's got quite a bit of expertise, so I'll be curious to hear what he has to say on that topic. Let me see. Corn nixtamalization, definitely thinking probably like June, July, once we can get together, is a great topic. Somebody said Wallopini, and I'm not sure what that was in reference to. I've heard the term, but I don't know what that means. Wallopini. Yeah, that's I'm sure I'm missing some, but we're at 12:06, so I'm going to thank everyone who's still here for joining, and definitely look forward to April the 10th. We'll have, like I said, the expert on you know, preparedness for, you know, potential being in, you know, an active shooter environment, you know, steps to take in terms of you know, maintaining safety and just general alertness to avoid that kind of thing. And then we'll be doing the segment on microgreens, which is just growing you know, leafy green vegetation to a very you know, young, tender stage that is harvestable for immediate use as a great source of fiber and green. So anyway, with that, thanks everybody for joining, and look forward to seeing you on April the 10th. All right, bye everybody.